P2 controlled the Italian secret police in the 1970s, took money from the CIA and KGB, may have had a hand in the kidnapping of Aldo Moro by the Red Brigades, had 900 agents in other branches of the Italian government and the highest positions of the Vatican, bombed a train station and tried to blame it on the communists, used the Vatican Bank to launder mafia drug money, fomented fascist coups in South America, and is most likely linked to the arch-conservative Knights of Malta and Opus Dei in the Vatican. P2's Licio Gelli may have had a role in the death of John Paul I, and perhaps even the assassination attempt on John Paul II. One of the most interesting people to write about the PUR may be Michael Lamy. He claims that Jules Verne was a member of both the PUR and the Illuminati. Further, he maintains that the PUR's politics must be understood as Orleanist, which he describes as aristocratic, anarchistic, and Nietzschean. Perhaps it all becomes most clear when Lamy reveals to the reader that the true secret of the village of Rennes-le-Château is that the extinct volcano Mount Bougueroc leads down into the hollow earth to a realm of supermen. Ian Begg feels it is connected with many of the Black Virgin sites all over Europe. Certainly, if the organization's full name is the PUR de Notre Dame du Sion, and if its site of Orville is connected to the worship of the bear goddess Arduina, venerated by the Sicambrian Franks of the area and their Merovingian kings, then this may be the case. There are hints, of course, that Notre Dame is not the mother of Jesus, but Mary of Bethany aka Magdalene, a princess of the tribe of Benjamin, which is itself notorious for an outbreak of goddess idolatry in the period of the Judges. That Mary may also be the one also known to the gypsies of the south of France as one of the three Marys de la Mer, whom they call Sarah the Egyptian, the sunburnt one. Sailing and grailing across the Atlantic. The most bizarre chapter in the story of Rennes-le-Château may have to do with the money pit mystery on Oak Island just off Nova Scotia. According to Michael Bradley, some of the keepers of the Grail may have come to the New World long before Columbus. Key proof: acorns do not float, he notes. He believes that some of the Templars may have fled to Canada after the dissolution of their order, carrying the Grail. The money pit has more often been associated with pirates' buried treasure, but as many know, the Jolly Roger flag's skull and crossbones icon has long been associated with Masonic and Templar legend. The so-called Venetian Zano map of the 15th century shows a knight with a sword standing where Nova Scotia is. The Sinclairs of Scotland are hereditary lords of Rosslyn Chapel and are said to be descended from the Scots Guards, a clique loyal to the Stuart dynasty, which in turn are thought to have contained converted members of the Templar order who fought with Robert de Bruce at Bannockburn, and to have provided the basis of Freemasonry. In the money pit on Oak Island, a mysterious stone inscription was found. 40 feet below £2 million are buried. Every company that has tried to locate this treasure has failed. One author has even recently speculated that the site was the burial place of an Arif, or Coptic Christian holy man from the 5th century. Along with the supposed visits of Prince Madoc of Wales and St. Brendan of Ireland, Prince Henry the Navigator's trip to the New World with the Zano brothers makes it one of numerous European pre-Columbian voyages. The Zano map, along with those called by Viking travelers, may have even helped Columbus make his way across the Atlantic. More than one writer has pointed to Columbus' possible Judaic heritage, and the ways in which Messianism pervades his thoughts on the discovery. Recently, a UFO contactee in Canada who calls himself Only Guardian speculated wildly about some Brotherhood of the Grail being operative there for centuries. Geographically speaking, there are in fact 2 Oak Islands, surrounding a central river, at the confluence of which is a mysterious ruin, which appears to be a fortress or old castle. It does appear that there may be strands connecting Rennes-le-Château and the New World. Ultimately, the Rosicrucian ideas behind the American experiment, as documented by Manly Palmer Hall, may have deeper Arcadian roots. Bradley hints, but does not come out and say, that what is beneath the money pit may be the Grail. It is not the only weird trail in the Rennes mystery. One researcher insists that the inventor Barnes Wallis was one of the most recent Grand Masters of Sion. Yet another feels it is worth pursuing the origins of the Cajun people of Louisiana. Another current theory is that Johann Salvator, the young Habsburg prince, finding his political ambitions rebuffed, may have sailed west and discovered the mysterious underground tunnels and lost cities of South America which so fascinated Colonel Perry Fawcett. Others have even found connections to the so-called Baconian theory, which suggests that Sir Francis Bacon authored Shakespeare's plays. Bacon's works suggest Rosicrucian experiment taking place in the New World. Panthorpe seems to believe that ultimately Rennes Chateau may be a doorway onto the invisible a gateway to other dimensions, through the Emerald Tablet, which he speculates may have been a tesseract three-dimensional representation of a four-dimensional figure, or a place to contact Gaia itself. The Visigothic kingdom of Reti was in the area, and the Visigoths are known to have seized at least some portion of the treasure of the temple, taken by the Romans during the Jewish revolt of 70s, when they sacked Rome in the 5th centuries. Could that treasure have been the Ark of the Covenant, concealed at Bren? Alternatively, the Copper Scroll of the Dead Sea sect, the Qumran suggested some of the temple treasure was hidden before the Roman invasion. Could the Nestorian Christians of the area have concealed the Ark, and given it to the Templars for safekeeping? Or could it have been hidden in Solomon's stables underneath the Mosque of Omar, where the Templars are known to have excavated? Might the Ark have been the item smuggled out by two Cathars under highly dangerous circumstances right before their brethren fell at Montsegur? The Ark may not have been an extraterrestrial power source, as some authors have claimed, but if it is the possession of Sion, it is an explosive secret, to say the least. Sion has claimed that they have items which will be returned to the government of Israel, when the time is right. Is the Grail in fact the Ark under of new guise? The Rosicrucian connection. The Merovingians' bloodline of Jesus or synagogue of Satan? During the Middle Ages, the Roman Catholic Church was a political power allied with the monarchies of Europe. In 1099 AD, Pope Urban II called Western Christendom to take up arms to liberate the Holy Land from the Muslims. Later, in 1215, the Inquisition formally began. During the reign of Pope Innocent III, who issued the following statement, that they shall be seized for trial and penalties, who engage in the translation of the sacred volumes, or who hold secret conventicles, or who assume the office of preaching without the authority of their superiors, against whom process shall be commenced, without any permission of appeal. Thomas McCree records, in the 11th century, capital punishment, even in its most dreadful form, that of burning alive, was extended to all who obstinately adhered to opinions differing from the received faith. Henry Charles Lee wrote, "The Papal Inquisition constituted a chain of tribunals throughout continental Europe perpetually manned by those who had no other work to attend to. By constant interchange of documents and mutual cooperation they covered Christendom with a network rendering escape almost hopeless." 1. Today, the Vatican maintains its own State Department and an influential albeit non-voting presence in the United Nations. Reports such as the following confirm current Vatican negotiations to regain control of the Holy Land. Although it must now work through diplomatic channels, the Second Vatican conquest of the Holy Land will be heralded as another spiritual mandate to re-establish the Holy Roman Empire. The Vatican's Jerusalem agenda by Israeli journalist Barry Chamish inquired, did Shimon Peres make a deal with the Vatican? Consider the evidence. On September 10, 93, just 3 days before the signing of the Declaration of Principles in Washington, the Italian news magazine La Stampa reported that part of the peace deal was an unwritten understanding that the Vatican would receive political authority over the old city of Jerusalem by the end of the millennium. The newspaper reported that Shimon Peres had promised the Pope to hand over the holy sites of Jerusalem the previous May and that Arafat had accepted the agreement. In March 94, The Israeli news magazine Shishi published an interview with Mark Halter, a French intellectual and close friend of Shimon Peres. He said he delivered a letter from Peres to the Pope the previous May, within which Peres offered the Vatican hegemony over the old city of Jerusalem. The article detailed Peres's offer, which essentially turned Jerusalem into an international city overseen by the Holy See. In March '95, the radio station Arutz Sheva announced that it had seen a cable sent by the Israeli embassy in Rome to the foreign ministry in Jerusalem outlining the handover of the old city of Jerusalem to the Vatican. 2 days later Arutz published the cable on its front page. The foreign ministry explained that the cable was genuine, but someone had whited out the word "not." We will not transfer authority to the Vatican. Incredibly, numerous Bnei Brak rabbis who had cancelled Passover meetings with Peres over the issue of the cable accepted the explanation and re-invited him to their homes. The Foreign Ministry's Legal Affairs spokesperson, Esther Samilag, publicly complained about various capitulations to the Vatican. She was immediately transferred to a post at the Israeli embassy in Kathmandu, Nepal. MK Avraham Shapira announced in the Knesset that he had information that all Vatican property in Jerusalem was to become tax-exempt, and that large tracts of real estate on Mount Zion were given to the Pope in perpetuity. Jerusalem's late deputy mayor Shmuel Meir announced that he had received information that properties promised to the Vatican would be granted extraterritorial status. Bellin was forced to answer the accusations. He admitted, included in the Vatican agreement is the issue of papal properties in Israel that will be resolved by a committee of experts that has already been formed. If so, this committee has not since released any proof of its existence. With all this in mind, how do we interpret the Vatican's current position on Jerusalem? The following report, circulated by MSN News, may shed some light on that. Vatican City, June 14, 1997, Vice Archbishop Renato Martino, Apostolic Nuncio and Holy See Permanent Observer to the United Nations, spoke June 9 on the status of Jerusalem at the New York headquarters of the Path to Peace Foundation. The Archbishop addressed members of this foundation as well as U.S. members of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. He began by briefly summarizing the well-known and long-standing position of the Holy See with regard to Jerusalem. He stated that Jerusalem for us, of course, along with the rest of the Holy Land, is that special link between heaven and earth, that place where God walked and ultimately died among men. And of course we recognize that others revere Jerusalem as the city of David and the prophets and the city known to Muhammad. It is a spiritual treasure for all of humanity, and it is a city of two peoples, Arabs and Jews, and of the three monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism and Islam. Archbishop Martino added that in recent years it has been increasingly difficult to break through the political and media-imposed stranglehold on the question of Jerusalem. He recounted Jerusalem's recent history, recalling in particular the UN's General Assembly Resolution 181 of 1947, calling for Jerusalem to be considered a corpus separatum under the Trusteeship Council of the United Nations, a resolution which Israel accepted. He pointed out that, in addressing the gridlock which has resulted from the 1967 Israeli occupation of East Jerusalem, the Holy See has therefore advocated the granting to Jerusalem of an internationally guaranteed special statute. That is the phrase used by Pope John Paul II in his 1984 apostolic letter Redemption is Anno. This statute asks that regardless of how the problem